Paul Casey, the Kempo Karate Hall of Fame educational video series. Tonight is a departure from what we normally do on the Hall of Fame. We're going to be discussing our favorite martial arts movies, and we're going to be fanboys. So in tribute to that, I'm going to be wearing several different outfits, including tonight my dragon robe in tribute to Enter the Dragon, in tribute to Cobra Kai, It Never Dies. And no Kempo karate discussion can be complete without discussing Ed Parker, American Kempo, and the King, baby. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I hope you enjoyed this little discussion with my fanboys as we have some fun here with the martial arts and the Kempo Karate Hall of Fame Zoom meeting. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. This is Paul Casey, the Kempo Karate Hall of Fame. I am very excited tonight as we depart from our serious discussions of Kempo, sometimes principles, concepts, basics, forms, self-defense, theories, all kinds of things like that. And we dabble into special subjects. And tonight we have a whole group of friends of the martial arts, and they have all different walks of life. They're involved in the entertainment business as well. And so I'm excited to say that tonight we're talking about entertainment and the martial arts. And with no further ado, we're going to welcome everybody to the show. I hope you like it. It is a gallery thing. With me are Joe Rebelo, all the way from the New England states. Hello, Joseph. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to be here. This is one of my guilty pleasures.
You're going to be talking about Kung Fu movies, right? Cool. Very cool. All right, with on the other end in Colorado, Lisa Hyams. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
Excellent. And you've been on our show a few times, but you're going to have to tell everybody in a few minutes about who you are and why you're here, other than I badger you into coming onto this program to talk to us.
You threatened me.
Something like that. Let's go down on the other end, all the way from Los Angeles, California, one of our newest inductees into the Kempo Karate Hall of Fame. Would you give a warm welcome to Rick Avery? Hello, Rick.
Hello, guys.
Rick's got an extensive background in the entertainment world, and you'll learn more about that in a few minutes. All the way from Canada. Oh, Canada. Jamie Seabrook. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Good. I hope you're going to share some of your favorites, I hope.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, and you're going to tell us why. One of the recipients of the Frank Trejo Inspiration Award. Let's say hello to Robert Temple. Hi, Robert. How you doing?
Hey, hello. I am terrific. It's great to be on the show this evening. And yes, I got some of my great martial arts picks that I want to talk about.
Cool, cool. Finally, one of my best friends. I love this guy. He always brings the real serious part to the discussion, always fact-checking me and giving me hell in the mornings when I call him. Give a warm welcome all the way from Washington, Mr. Todd Durkin. Hello, Todd.
Hello, all. How are you? It's good to see this group of people here.
And it's exciting to have you all here. And Todd's got some real obscure things that he shared with me to watch. And needless to say, I did Google them, man. I watched some of them, and I got to tell you now, I forgot some of them. Anyway, let's move it right around. Let's take it. Let's start with you, Todd. Tell me one of your favorite martial arts movies and what it did to impact you and influence you.
So one of those obscure ones you were talking about was Remo Williams. I see 2 thumbs up from Mr. Rebelo. Yeah, that was a great show. One of my favorite lines of all time in any movie ever was, "You move like a pregnant yak." After Remo thought he was doing really well and got through an obstacle course that the old man had set up for him. And he said, how was that? He said, you move like pregnant yak.
Why did he, in the beginning, why did he got killed by being pushed through the car into the river there? How did they save him? I don't get that.
In Korea, door handles do not break.
Todd, really? I'm throwing that back at you, Todd. I mean, why was it so good for you?
There were a lot of different lessons that were in there for more of a personal journey, I guess, kind of a thing. Introspective lessons that people should take. I'm not huge on taking a lot out of movies as far as martial arts application is concerned, but there can be introspective lessons, and whether moral, spiritual, or emotional lessons in movies throughout all of them. So
I'm guessing this was in the beginning of your martial arts career that you watched this, right?
Actually, I've watched it several times throughout. It's always a good movie to go back and watch.
Well, give us a couple of the lessons that you learned.
Well, humility. Humility was probably the greatest lesson to learn out of that whole entire movie. That, and there's always somebody, not necessarily bigger and faster, but there's always somebody better. Because the little man had his number all the way through.
Jamie, give me a couple of your favorites all the way. Did they show the same movies in Canada?
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
Am I allowed to say Karate Kid?
You can.
No.
You can say the Karate Kid. Go ahead.
The first three, I love them all. The first one obviously is my favorite. I could probably start and finish line by line. That's how many times I've seen it. I like the Karate Kid movies, not just because of the acting, but there's a strong moral character and message to the Karate Kid movies. And it's not just fight. Like there's a great message, and Mr. Miyagi, in the movies, and teaching Daniel about character and humility and being a good person. And then if I think of something like Karate Kid 3 with Terry Silver, he did a fantastic job. There was a good message there too. The grass seems greener on the other side, and Miyagi wanted Daniel to go beyond just thinking about winning in tournaments. So he thought, okay, I'm going to go train with Terry Silver, and everything seemed relatively fine. He kind of gave a little bit of abuse along the way, but then he recognized, my original teacher, he was the one that was developing the character in me. So I just think the messages in the Karate Kid movies are phenomenal. I use them a lot actually with my students as an example to relay back to their life.
Do you try to teach in the style of Miyagi?
I try to focus on character development a lot. I mean, like the latest episode, the latest season of Cobra Kai will show you. Sometimes you can get a little bit from both sides, including the Johnny Lawrence side of learning how to not only be defensive but be offensive when you want to, but ultimately character, including now on the Johnny Lawrence side, character development is really what brings out in my opinion, the humility and what you should be as a martial artist. So I just think the messages in those Karate Kid movies are outstanding.
Did each movie have a different message?
Somewhat. I mean, but I still think, even Karate Kid 2, when he goes to Okinawa, he's confronted with another villain, but ultimately, the Miyagi-Do way and character and doing the right thing is far beyond just one's skills as a martial artist. It exemplifies who you are. And I just, again, I can't find any movies myself that replicate the moral and character development like we see in the Karate Kid movies. I just think they're so good.
Okay, panel of special guests, open to you. Let's go down the line and see what your thoughts are on the Karate Kid. Let's start with, first of all, with Robert Temple.
Well, you know what? It's a interesting series. I enjoyed the first movie. I thought that was pretty good. And from time to time, I get an opportunity to watch the series, and I find it to be, again, a lot of my martial arts students call me and recommend me to watch it, and I think it's a good story. It's a good storyline and definitely good acting.
Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's funny that Mr. Seabrook mentioned that, because for me, it is all about the lesson. It all is all about character. It is all about creating the individual and the person. And, you know, I mean, I was married to Joe Hyams. I mean, you know, and for him, that was the lesson that he liked to teach and that was important to him. And in Karate Kid, they nailed it. Well, maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was about the message. And so many other movies are about the fight scenes. That's what it's all about. It's fighting. And I know that's what people want to see. But I've got to tell you, I do this when it's fight scenes. Because you hate to see somebody hurt, even though it's the movies. And most of them aren't hurt. We do know of other actors that are martial artists that intentionally would try and hurt the people they were fighting in the movies, which is very sad and unfortunate, you know. But I enjoyed what Mr. Miyagi taught and about the mental, and it's just so important. It's so critical to know that.
We'll come back to you later about your husband's involvement with these movies. Let's go up here and let me talk real quick to Rick. What are your thoughts of the Karate Kid series?
Well, I'm an old man, so that was a long time ago. I didn't watch the whole series. I can't say anything bad about it because my good friend Pat Johnson was involved in it, I believe, who I respect a lot. I like the character of Miyagi. Looking at it from a professional standpoint where I came from, I didn't really like the martial arts scenes in the movie that much, but yeah, it made Miyagi put a positive twist on the martial arts and how it should be looked upon. My good friend Benny Urquidez talks about the MMA today, that the thing he dislikes the most about it, from probably the greatest fighter ever, is that there's no Bushido in it. And I think that was something that was presented well in the Karate Kid.
Joseph, make it colorful, buddy. Talk about these three movies that well, there was a fourth movie we know about, but we're talking right now about the first three.
5.
Okay, well, 5.
5. Let's count the Jackie Chan one, please. The people don't like in China, they call it the Kung Fu Kid. They don't call it the Karate Kid. But you know, when I look at it, it's wow. Okay, so this kid gets beat up. He gets his instructor. Doesn't have any formal training initially. Trains out in the elements. Learns maybe 6 weeks. Gets to the tournament. Doesn't have a black belt, so he steals it out of somebody else's bag. Then and the guys are punks to begin with, so they deserve what they get. You know, and he gets beaten up as he should get beaten up because he's still a beginner. He's not a real black belt, but eventually he wins in the end. Great story, and simply stated, created a whole new generation of students for karate schools. Enjoyed the return to Okinawa, and enjoyed the little bit of Goju-Ryu. They'll never mention Goju-Ryu. And hey, don't you like to plug us as Kempo people as bad guys? They won't say the law of the fist, but they sure will say the way of the fist in Cobra Kai. And I'm like, where? I'll never forget a friend of mine's in Hawaii when he saw the Karate Kid. He was like, oh my God, where are the bad guys? Where's the Cobra Kai? Kempo is the Cobra Kai. You know, and I was like, you know, I said that to people, and it's like, no, we're made out to be the bad guy. They may claim Korean martial arts. I remember when Thomas Ian Griffith, originally when he did stuff like ulterior motives and excessive force, they claimed not only was a black belt in Taekwondo, but in Kempo as well. And I really wanted to talk to Thomas about that when I see him. But yeah, it's a great film. It teaches about the beneficial aspects of karate. It teaches about the camaraderie and the fellowship and the relationship between instructor and student on a positive level. And I knew people that were card-carrying Cobra Kai people. I knew people that were just like that, who were rude, crude, and socially unacceptable, but still did martial arts. And I think probably we all know of at least one person who was like that. And so it showed the good and the bad elements of it. I like the Jackie Chan film. Sorry, that's my favorite out of all of them. You know, I love Miyagi. I loved Pat Morita's portrayal of Miyagi. I love they kept his humor with cracking jokes occasionally, because he was, you know, if you remember, gosh, the Hit Nip he used to call himself when he was a comedian. And and Ralph Macchio still moves like Ralph Macchio. He's still, you watch.
Okay, let's go,
60
Todd.
something.
Todd Durgan. Any lessons to be learned from? Well, not what Joe said, but any lessons you can impart on, share with us from the discussion so far.
So I have to agree with there were great character development lessons and great it was great for the influx of martial arts and all that, but as far as the karate goes or the martial arts, yeah, you gotta, I do this, not this, but that's, after 40 some years of martial arts, you have a tendency to kind of go, oh yeah. But I mean, initially it was great. Yeah, it got everybody excited. If you were of the age that, the kid was at the time. The Pat Morita character was great. You love the traditional representation that he made of a sensei or an old backyard dojo instructor. I don't know. I enjoyed it, but early on, nowadays I'm not a super big fan of those, other than what they're good for, and that is the character development and the that side of the martial arts. They're awesome for that.
Let's go to Robert Temple. Okay, Robert,
Sure.
We're going to go over to you now.
Yes.
Give us one of your favorite movies and why.
Circle of Iron. Okay.
Circle of Iron.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, well, really, because I heard that was really supposed to be a Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah, the Silent Flute.
Yeah, and I think it would have been phenomenal. But the best thing for me, my teacher was in it. And he did the BKF citation like no one else. I love that. And from that point on, I just enjoyed the movie, just as crazy as it went. And watching David Carradine do his kung fu craziness, it was a fun movie for me. So,
so that was it, because
that was it.
Donnie Williams being in the movie.
Absolutely.
Really,
Absolutely.
that was a pretty interesting scene out there in the desert doing their jumping around and fighting.
I thought that was insane. It's martial arts and this craziness.
Wow.
But it was fun. Had a good time with it.
Let us then, if that's the case, okay, Rick, did you work with David Carradine?
Yes. Okay,
now jump in. Tell us about it. How do you feel about the Circle of Iron? You can censor yourself.
I'm not familiar with Circle of Iron. I worked with him on the
Just
Kung
think
Fu
of the
series.
Kung Fu series.
Yeah, that's where I worked with him, and he seemed to be asleep most of the time. But yeah, I can't speak to that movie, unfortunately. I'm sorry, but it sounds like it's good. I'll have to check it out.
It was crazy.
Well, it had its moments.
Yeah, and since Donnie Williams has kicked my ass in the past.
You actually competed against Donnie, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, well, as a competitor, how was he?
Nasty.
Okay.
He was nasty. He kicked harder than anybody I'd ever met, especially when he was kicking me. Yeah, we went into overtime, but he whooped my butt.
I wonder what happened to David Carradine on that. What if Donnie pulled the punches on him? Yeah. Do you think, Robert, did he ever share any insights into that?
No,
David,
he actually didn't.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
No, I was going to answer a different question. Go ahead, please.
Okay. No, he never shared that. In fact, those are questions I'll ask him tomorrow.
Please do. I like him. He's a fun guy. He would have been great to come on here and told the truth, and he would have.
He would have, yeah.
Yeah, he would have said it as. What are your thoughts on that, Lisa? Did you ever see the movie The Circle of Iron?
I did see it, but it was a long time ago. Most of the martial arts movies that I watched were prior to me getting involved with martial arts. They have a much greater meaning for me now after having spent time in the martial arts, of course, being married to Joe and being a student of Bong Joon-ho's. But it was about fighting. It was all about fighting. There's so much more to the martial arts than just fighting.
Did you ever work or did you ever meet David Carradine?
I met him briefly, but never worked with him. No.
Okay. Did Joe ever have any stories on him? Inquiring minds would love to know.
I believe he made reference to him a few times.
Okay.
But never anything in a negative fashion, though I think that he felt that that maybe a little more martial arts education would have been nice.
That would have been kind. Joe Rebelo, what are your thoughts on the Circle of Iron?
It's a guilty pleasure for me. Rick, I was gonna say, if you ever worked with Anthony DeLongis, he's in that film portraying a character called Markov. And then there's great footage of David Carradine's instructor, Cam Yuen, using the 3-section staff against David portraying a Monkey King-like character. That really is like David Carradine's martial arts opus, because he portrays no less than 5 different characters in that film. And also, a lot of people, here's an interesting fact. The other main character, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Cooper, was doubled as a fight double by Joe Louis. A lot of people don't know that. It was a very interesting film for its time. It's a fantasy, and there's some great lines in the movie. There are like you can't step on the same part of the water twice, and there's just some great lines, and I don't know why they're eluding me right now. Sterling Silliphant wrote the screenplay, and there are other interesting, like Eli Warwick's in the movie playing the man in the oil. It's an interesting little film. Like I said, it's got its points to it. And like I said, to me, it's David Carradine's martial arts opus, where he portrays all these different characters. And you look and say, wow, imagine Bruce Lee portraying all these 5 different characters in this film. Because originally it was the Silent Flute was the original working title of the film. So, but it's got some interesting aspects to it.
Did Lee get credit for the story?
Oh yeah,
he did in the
oh
writing.
yeah, there's a credit right there, inspired by screenplay written by Silva, inspired by Bruce. Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
there's a screenplay.
And by the way,
Roger Corman actually created the film.
I do know Anthony. He's one. Actually, his greatness is also he was the one that instructed many people on the use of the bullwhip, like Michelle Pfeiffer and others. That Indiana Jones, which is Harrison Ford. I got a chance to work with him. He could make that whip. He would snap it, and Rick would probably attest if he's worked with him. That thing came out. It was like a butterfly. It just went soft. It just floated. It was like slow motion. It was really bizarre. He could make it float, and also at the end, kaboom! The snap and the pop. I was like blown away by him. He was great. I also saw him again at the 50th anniversary of the Stuntman's award show. Rick, you might have been there. That was at the Hilton, Universal Hilton. Were you there that night?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I might have been working.
Okay, it was a lot of people. The who's who and what's what was there. They were honesting Harrison Ford. So I was there with all the Ted White was there, and Wilford Brumley was there, and then the guy, the people that did all the most famous family for stunts. Help me, what's their name? They did Romancing the Stone and all that.
The Eppers.
The Eppers, yeah, they were all there. It was incredible. I also met Steve McQueen's double. I can't remember his name. He was there, and they were all great, man. Those guys are fun. You guys are fun. I don't understand why you want to jump out of buildings on fire and crash into cars, but
Pretty
that's
stupid,
the way
isn't it?
It's crazy stuff. Hey, Jamie, what are your thoughts on the Circle of Iron? And if not that movie, what did you think of David Carradine as a martial artist actor?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I love the original Kung Fu series. I watched it all the time. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I can't speak for that movie specifically.
Okay, and let's see, Todd, your thoughts on that?
On Circle of Iron?
Yes, sir.
So while everybody was talking, I was looking at there was a lot of people on there that you see from later on. Oh man. But no, I had never seen it. I have it dialed up, so I'm gonna watch it.
I have a copy of it on Blu-ray.
Although I'm not a super fan of David Carradine myself, but lessons are lessons if you can pull something out of it.
Okay, let's jump around here now. I'm going to go over to Rick. Rick, you've done a lot of martial arts movies, so this is like not fair. But there's probably, first of all, why don't you say some of the movies that you did with the martial arts, and then pick maybe a favorite scene that you got to do or were involved with in the production of those movies? Wow, I know that's a lot. Buddy. That's a lot, but what the hell? Let us enjoy. Hold on, Rick. Hold on. I know you're going to talk for a while because you're like that. So I got my soda and I got my pop.
I'm going to
knock
try
it out
not
of the
to.
park, pal.
You got more movie educated people here than I am. Yeah, I've just got this. So, you know, my favorite martial artist, I've worked with most of them, is Jackie Chan. Just because of the themes in each of his fights, in each of his movies, his comic relief through all of them. I worked with him first on Cannonball 2, where nobody here in the United States even knew who he was. And I was asked by the stunt coordinator to hire a bodyguard for him because he was threatened by the Triad for doing that movie. They weren't happy about him doing the movie. So I volunteered my services, but he said, no, you're working as a stunt guy on that. So bring somebody in. So I brought an old friend that used to be my partner when I was a policeman. And we worked with Jackie and hung out with him every day. And his favorite drink is a virgin pina colada. And I would say my most memorable time was doing a couple of fights with him. Just because of who he was, his personality. And, you know, I've done them with Chuck Norris and John Claude and Jeff Speakman and, you know, David Carradine and all these other people, but he's the one that I enjoyed the most.
When you worked with him, was it all set out in advance or you just worked through something, he adapted, or, I mean, was it improvised?
Yeah. Yeah, for that particular movie, no, he set up the fight himself. The coordinator wasn't a martial artist, and he put me in there because I was. But Jackie pretty much would set it up, and you know, he's one of the greatest stuntmen ever because he did a lot of that. You know, the stuntmen in China, they see what we do, and what we do, a lot of it is illusion. It's the selling of angles, and they do it for real there until recently. And Jackie has a team. It's called Jackie Chan's Stunt Team. And what he'll do is he'll take the rookie stunt guy and he'll have him jump off the 3-story building and he'll go to the hospital all the time. And then they'll bring in the next guy and they'll keep sending guys to the hospital until they get it right because they see how we do it and they do it for real, not knowing how to properly do it. So I did this movie called Ninja Kids where we brought some of those guys over and man, they were jumping out of 30-foot trees and made me humble as a stuntman, but the next day they would end up being on a plane going back to China because they broke their spine or something. So yeah, I think I kind of got off your initial
No, you got
question,
it right into it. So Jackie Chan, what other movies did you do with Jackie?
What was the he did a series of movies.
The Rush Hour?
Rush Hour. Yeah, I worked on 2 of the Rush Hours with him.
So pick out, how was it like working on it? Did you actually?
He had changed. Well, he was a changed man. He had an entourage at that point. When I first met him, no one knew who he was until we went into a Chinese restaurant. And then the flashes would go off. We were working in Tucson, Arizona, so no one knew who Jackie Chan was. But by the time he got to the Rush Hour movies, he had his entourage, and you know, he was being treated differently. He didn't hang out on the set like he used to. You know, he would come on, do his scene, and then leave. So my good friends James Liu and Simon Rhee are very close to him. So you know, those are the guys that hang out with him more.
What was it like working with Chris Tucker? You understand the words are coming out of my mouth.
I didn't really work with Chris much on that. So
they shot that down in Chinatown, you know, where we Kempoists used to hang out a lot. Am I right on that, Lisa? We used to hang out down in Chinatown to go out to all the restaurants down there to eat.
Man, Chinatown, yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys knew, but when Joe passed, his celebration of life was at the Empress Pavilion in LA. Because dim sum was our Sunday meal every Sunday for more than 20 years. So, and of course, he was godfather to the grandsons of the man who owned General Lee's in Chinatown.
Rick, going back to, so you worked on that movie, the Rush Hour movie. Were you in Las Vegas with that when they filmed that part 2?
Yeah, but not for a long time. I
I
just
see.
came out there to do some car work. So
Yeah,
I
so
wasn't doing fights with Jackie anymore. I evolved into other types of stunts, so I wasn't there to do that.
Well, let's stay with you on a couple of the other movies while you're at it. You worked also with John Von Damme, right?
Yeah, I doubled him on a movie called Lionheart, and I did some fire burns on that, doubling another guy. And then, of course, I did all of Jeff Speakman's movies, all but a couple, and directed a couple of his movies for him. And then choreographed all of the fights as well.
I have to say, I watched Lionheart the other day. I enjoyed it. I thought that was one of his better movies, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I just got an email from somebody in France who's doing a book on Van Damme, and wanted to know if anybody doubled him on that show, because he claims that he didn't have a stunt double, but I was the guy, so I know I did.
Let's pass it around here. Todd, you got any questions for Rick on that, on the people that he worked with?
No, I'm a bit envious. You got to work with Jackie Chan. He's probably one of my all-time favorite martial arts actor characters, because, and largely because I love his sense of humor that he portrays. More of an easygoing kind of, I don't know, humble guy in most of his movies, and it's refreshing from all of the, or from a lot of the really serious, staunch martial arts characters that you see.
Well,
So,
I choreographed and set up the Waterworld show that's at Universal Studios. It's the longest running stunt show that they have there. And I have to be honest, in as much as after I set that show up, they sent me to Japan, Wakayama, Japan, to do a Viking show. And I didn't know how to set up the show or start the fights. There wasn't a script. So I went and watched as many Jackie Chan movies as I could, and I stole as much as I could out of them. So
Well, don't you know that's where all the Vikings hang out? They go and eat in China.
Yeah.
What the hell, right?
Yeah,
Let's go,
so-
Jamie. Jamie, what you got a question here for Rick?
Yeah, sure. How was working with Van Damme? I actually had told Paul one of my top 5 movies I'd probably have to put was Bloodsport. So how was working with Van Damme?
Oh, don't get me started with him. He's not a nice man.
Okay.
I mean, I'll give you an example, just a short example. I walked onto the set one day, and he was at catering, and he fired the caterer because there were seeds in the watermelon, and he had asked for seedless. So if that tells you anything about Jean-Claude Van Damme, that's what
Okay.
it's like. He was fine with me, but yeah.
Sounds like
and
everything I've heard.
Bloodsport, don't get me started on that and the truth or the non-truths about, what actually happened. And I forget the name of the guy who claims it's
Frank Dukes.
yeah.
Met Frank here in Seattle. He came up. One of the guys that I was just working out with at the time was had a ninjutsu school, because it was under Duke's system or whatever, and it was just a place for me to work out. And yeah, he came up for something, and I had some big BS story about Ed Parker and whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, he's a good BS artist. He got only so far because of that, so yeah.
Let's go to Joe Rebelo. Will you have any questions, or you want to just make a comment on some of the stuff that Rick's done?
Oh, you bet. So, Rick, I mean, I followed. Now I got to go back and watch Cannonball Run 2 and look for you. I have it. I know I have it nearby, but I want to talk to you. Out of all the fight scenes that you'd work with Jeff, my most memorable one to me is the one, of course, with you and your wife and The Expert. Would you say that was the most interesting scene that you had done, or is there another choreographed fight scene that you really enjoy? You look at it and go, "That's a great movie I worked on," regarding the fight choreography.
Yeah, all of the fights, Jeff was insistent about making sure that all the fights were Kempo accurate. So he took a lot of the movements, and when we would choreograph them, the hardest part for me was teaching Hollywood stunt guys on how to take the punches. Jeff made it real though. All of the martial artists that I've worked with have all been courteous, if that's the word to use, and didn't abuse the stunt guys. Jeff abused them. So I was always over budget because I had to pay the guys more money in their stunt adjustments when they fought him.
Yeah.
But I don't have one particular fight that I could think of that stands out in mind, but you know, they were all good.
I just want to ask one thing about it. Thomas Ian Griffiths. So he did Ulterior Motives, Excessive Force, and Cracker Jack. Did you work on one of those films?
I was the stunt coordinator on Ulterior Motives. Yeah.
I thought so.
Wonderful man. Really enjoyed working with him.
I'll tell him you said that when I see him. Great. Cool.
No, I mean it. I mean it. And yeah, he was just working on a show I was supposed to go to. I can't remember the name of it recently. I think he's producing stuff now, isn't he?
That I don't know. We're trying to get him for Rhode Island Comic-Con next year. One of my students owns that Comic-Con, and I'm really looking forward because I've got all of his old films. I'm going to walk up and go, "Hey, plop! Can you sign all this?"
Yeah, he's a wonderful man. Wonderful man.
Cool.
Did you get a chance, Rick, to talk to Mako? Because he had done the Bruce Lee series in 1966, the Green Hornet.
Yeah, no, I did not, sir.
Okay. What about the stunt coordinator for was it Jeff? What was Jeff? Jeff Amida?
Jeff Amata.
Amata. Okay, Jeff Amata. What was it like working with him?
Well, I've known Jeff for our whole career. We've gone through the stunt business together. We both started together as martial artists, and then I've worked for Jeff for over 40 years. He did all the Brandon Lee stuff. He was very close with Brandon, so I was on all the Brandon Lee movies as well with him. Yeah, and I have to give him the credit of introducing me to Bob De Niro, because he brought me in to be Bob's double, and I've been his double ever since. So I owe Jeff that much.
That makes sense looking at you. I'm just messing with you.
I just have to.
It would work.
I
It would work.
do have a question for Rick, though. When you were saying that he wanted to keep it as authentic as possible, in the fight scenes with Jeff going at it in the gym, you notice that you have one system, you see the Korean style back there with the kicking. Okay, and then it seems that Speakman answered with kicking as well. He was doing a lot of kicks I don't really remember being Kempo kicks. Well, was that because of his
Well,
background?
that's it. You know, that's just fight choreography to make it interesting. You know, it wasn't. You know, Mr. Parker would come by the set occasionally to watch what we were doing.
Mhm.
But yeah, there were times when we threw kicks just to be a little flashy. That's all.
Okay, Joe, you have a question?
No, I was going to say, Jeff Amata wasn't in that gym fight scene. It was Ray Sua, who
No.
actually won the internationals one year.
No.
James
No, it wasn't.
Liu, who you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
And the third guy, Aki Leong. I'm trying to remember the third guy. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, yeah, Al Leong.
Al Leon.
Yeah.
But not the White Lotus Al Leong. This was the other guy,
Yeah,
because I know he didn't work in that fight scene.
yeah. And Ray Sua, those guys, I don't know if you all know who the Sua family was, but they were feared in the day. Really tough fighting family. So I was lucky to get him on the movie. And then of course we had James Liu fight Jeff in The Perfect Weapon, and that was a great fight as well.
Let's go over to Mr. Rebelo. Hello, Joseph. How you doing? How's the weather back there?
We got bad snow, but it came to 2 days of rain, cleared it all out. It's about 50 degrees today, which in New England, that's summer. But as much as I mean,
You need to talk to Jamie about that one. Well, you're not too far from each other. So, Joseph, we've heard of some of the movies that we have here. Give us one of your favorites.
Man, I got some really wild ones. I've got like left field stuff, but you should watch them. One of my favorites is called Heroes of the East, and it's a story about a young Chinese man whose father was a merchant. He meets with this Japanese merchant. They have an arranged marriage between the son and the daughter, and it starts with her coming from Japan, and she's immersed in Japanese culture and he's immersed in Chinese culture. So you had this odd couple thing going on where they're constantly confronting each other. She's also a martial artist. She studied Japanese and Okinawan martial arts. She studied judo. She studied karate. She studied Okinawan weaponry. She studied ninjutsu, while he's done like Hungar, Kung Fu, and Choi Li Foot and the Chinese weaponry. And they're having these arguments with each other about which one is best. It's a wonderful film, and it's a wonderful documentary showing Chinese versus Japanese and Okinawan martial arts and the history and the diversity of each of those given arts. So long story short, she leaves him. He sends a letter trying to get her back, talking about how all the arts came from China. Her ninjutsu instructor, who's portrayed by Yasuaki Kurata, which is also another one of my favorite films that I'm going to talk about. He intercepts the letter and he shows it to all of her sensei. So they all come to China to confront this young man. And the way he makes it sound, he sounds like he's, this expert. And he's a martial artist, but he's no expert. He has to confront all these different instructors. It's a wonderful movie. I highly recommend it. Again, Heroes of the East. And of course, the Chinese actor is no less than Gordon Liu from 36 Chambers of Shaolin.
That's the one.
That's the one I like. That. Let's talk about that one. Okay, Todd, bring it up, buddy.
No, not me. No, not me.
All right, Joe, we're throwing it back to you.
Okay.
I didn't get to finish all
since
the
Rick
popcorn.
Avery is since Rick Avery is here, I got to talk about a movie. I remember in Inside Kung Fu, a young Rick Avery standing there in a salt and pepper gi with that wonderful patch, which, by the way, Rick, I still want one of those patches if you can find one with the dragon. I want one of those bad boys bad, okay? But he's holding tofa because a lot of people don't realize that Rick Avery trained with Tadashi Yamashita. Matter of fact, Ed Parker's Guide to Nunchaku exists because of Rick Avery. If it weren't for him as a young black belt for his black belt thesis doing a nunchaku kata that inspired Ed Parker to do a book on nunchaku, that's the man. If you want to pick anyone that created with the impetus for that book, he's right there. But there's a great movie that I love, which is called Kung Fu: The Invisible Fist. And it's great because the two leads in a Kung Fu movie are karate people. You've got Chen Sing, who's a Goju-Ryu guy from Hong Kong, squared off with, again, Yasuaki Kurata, Shotokan and Okinawan weapon expert, and they do a fight scene with Sai versus Tonfa. It was the second martial arts movie I had ever seen. I would see these in magazines, but I had never seen them live. And these two men proceed to beat the living daylights out of each other with these weapons. And it's a real great opus on seeing these two people do an Okinawan weapon fight with Sai against Tonfa. And on top of that, if you look, one of the Japanese villains that assists Kurata is none other than Che Yuan, who portrays the dumb acolyte Korean expert in Game of Death, guy in black who always gets the daylights beat out of him by Dana Nasanto on up and finally gets killed by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But that's Che Yuan. And dude, this dude is shredded. He looks like Bolo. I mean, this guy's got a bod, man. He's ripped. And, you watch this guy take his shirt off and you're like, holy, wow, that guy's shredded. And it's a great movie. And I highly recommend it, even if you just see the fight scene. It's called Kung Fu: The Invisible Fist with Chen Sing versus Yasuaki Kurata.
Any comments, anybody? The gallery, thoughts, any of those movies? Did you see them?
I wrote a couple down.
Crickets.
No, that one I didn't see. I would love to see it though. Wow. Sounds like a fantastic film.
Here we go.
Legendary Weapons of China. Man, you want to see an opus on every single thing that a Chinese person ever picked up to hit somebody with? That's the movie to see. It's incredible. And
I just wrote it down to watch the fight scene, so I have it on my computer.
cool.
I suggest-
Yeah, check out Kung Fu: The Invisible Fist, man. That's a great one. And Legendary Weapons of China. Just the opening credits alone is like an opus to Kung Fu weapons. It's really impressive.
Joe is like the aficionado when it comes to this stuff. If with 20,000
20,000
copies
titles.
of movies, Rick, he knows everything.
It sounds like it.
It works. No, I shut up. Okay, so now what we got. So now I'm going to move on down to our lady of the group. And Lisa is going to lay in on sharing some things about her involvement and her husband's involvement in the martial arts and some of the projects that came to fruition. Lisa, tell us a little bit about your husband.
Well, I don't have a tremendous amount to offer, but I've got to talk about To Kill the Golden Goose. How could I not? It's almost a cult classic. It wasn't the best movie, but people love it. I run into more people that say, my favorite movie, my all-time favorite movie. And of course, when you have two people like Bong Joon-ho and Ed Parker in the movie together, fighting each other, friends that are pitted against each other, and then they're doing their own choreography. So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when the two of them were trying to choreograph the scenes. One coming from the Kempo side, one coming from Hapkido. I can imagine that would have been very interesting, though I do know they both had enormous respect for one another. But my first movie that introduced me to the martial arts, I mean, my brothers took karate when I was a little girl, but I had to take ballet. And but it was Enter the Dragon. Enter the Dragon was the movie that that I saw for the first time that made me realize how powerful it was. And it was, as you all know, the fight scenes were pretty brutal, and none of us would be able to endure what any of those people endured during that time and during those fight scenes. But, Joe was really integral in getting Kill the Golden Goose done, and he helped call in many of his friends to raise money. And his friend Pat Strong, a longtime martial artist, we love Pat. Pat was the director, and it was a fun movie, and Joe got to even act in it. And Joe's a terrible actor. He was
Really?
a terrible actor. I don't know if any of you saw it.
You can say that now.
No, he would have said it to your face. Whenever he would get, he was interviewed all the time on Good Morning America or the Today Show, and he just was like a stick. He just had a hard time when the camera came on. But if you didn't have a camera on him, you talking to him all day long. Just the personalities.
What was you bringing up Bruce? Obviously, the legacy of Bruce Lee is incredible, and what the influence and impact to this day. I mean, look at where we're at with it. What was Joe's personal feelings about Bruce? Did he ever relay that to you?
Joe studied with Bruce for 3 years, and he had enormous respect for Bruce. He personally felt that he had never sparred with someone who was faster. I'm sure it could be debatable, but he especially liked the work that Bruce did with blindfolded. He said Bruce blindfolded would nail him every time, and he had enormous respect for Bruce. He was very sad when of course Bruce passed away. He was also very sad when Bruce left the United States and said, "I'm moving to Hong Kong. I'm going to be a movie star." And Joe laughed at him. I mean, Joe was a Hollywood correspondent. He knew movies, and he knew how difficult it was, and he didn't think it would happen. And it happened. I mean, he made quite the name for himself.
Well, there are other actors that Joe was instrumental in their careers as well. We'll get to that in a second. I'm going to go over to Robert on this. Robert,
Yep.
You dabbled a little bit in a movie called Enter the Dragon.
Well, I'll say that my family did. I'll say it that way.
Okay, go ahead.
And
Tell
their
us about it.
experience. Well, when you talk to some of the guys about their their time there, they don't mention it. I mean, I really had to pry out a little information from Steve Muhammad about his time, as well as Bishop Williams. I don't know why they don't talk about it, but they all felt that they had a great experience. And that was the first time that the BKF, or just in any big karate organization or startup karate organization, had their patch in a movie that is the best martial arts movie ever. And from that point on, Bishop Williams is fond of saying that his 5 minutes of fame for him speaking his couple of different lines by saying move made his movie career, which lasted, I guess he had about 6, 8 movies. He did just off of that one, that one scene that he was in. But again, when we talk about Enter the Dragon, if you talk about it, you have to talk about it. One of the best films ever. And I've heard that they were trying to do another Enter the Dragon. I don't see how they could. I don't see how that's possible.
Right.
You know, how they can do a remake of Enter the Dragon. So
Let's go to Todd. Your thoughts on that iconic movie?
Yeah, I have to agree. It's definitely top 5 all-time best movies ever for martial arts, for the fight scenes and so forth. The storyline was, I mean, you know, the storyline was sketch, but it was a great martial arts movie. So who cares, right? Good fight scenes, good martial arts, so little blood and knuckles. Yeah. I just, yeah, I love that movie. It was great.
Let me go over to Jamie. Your thoughts of the great Enter the Dragon. Pick a spot, a movie, a segment, a scene that really inspired.
So many good parts, and there's good lines too. I like that one scene when the one guy was throwing the back fist by Bruce Lee, and Bruce said, "Don't you think we need more room? We can take this boat." And then he said, oh, just prior to that, he said, "You guess you could just call it the art of fighting without fighting." They're just,
Yeah,
just
the Russian
great.
guy.
Yeah, I love that part.
I always think of the 2 scenes, the one with the young student. Don't think, feel. And, you know, I mean, I can't have how many times I've heard somebody say that line, which is
Little slap to the head.
No. And
Try
then,
again.
and then I have to say, honestly, I know that I'll go to Rick in this in a second. The sad, tragic passing of our friend Bob Wall back at the beginning of the month. And, you know, boards don't hit back. And I had fun with Bob, with my little boy playing Bob Wall for a parody. And he said to me, he said, that movie, I worked with Bruce, all those movies, but he said, all the years I've been here, no one ever did a tribute to me like that. And he loved that with George, my 6-year-old. And, you know, for the past year, he was nothing but just complimentary, and always asked about when's George coming back to visit. And he was 82, and George wears me out. And after 4.5, 5 hours, Bob was still ready to go. I was like, oh my God, we got to go. We got to go. I can't. Rick, you knew Bob Wall. Talk about it.
I did. Yeah, he could wear you out as well. Yeah, I love Bob, and I love that's one of my favorite scenes in Enter the Dragon as well. And Enter the Dragon is kind of like the Godfather movie to me. It's it can never, I agree with you, Rob. It can't be redone with that particular cast. Nobody could take the place of Bruce, and even guys like Bob, and you know, the mirror scene is my most favorite scene towards the end. And yeah,
And how are you
I
going to
don't think
replace
anything
Bolo
stands
Young?
up. I'm sorry, what?
And how are you going to replace Bolo Young?
Yeah, I don't think you could do any of that, you know, and those of you that were in the martial artists back, as martial artists back then, after that movie came out, 1 million karate studios came out, 1 million new black belts came out, and it was the greatest shot in the arm for martial arts ever. I had a school back then, and it just blew up. So yeah, great movie.
Well,
I'm
you
glad
look
our
at
friend
that,
Bob was in it, and
yeah,
Chuck.
you look at the impact of all that came from that. And, you know, look at the John Wick series, which I'm a fan of it, because not that I, you know, they don't do a lot of talking in there. Sorry, Lisa. It's just, there's very few things that Keanu Reeves says. And, but I mean, the scene, they replicated the mirror. the end of Enter the Dragon, the director was so influenced by that they actually did something like that in the museum where they had the different levels of the museum, and there was the mirroring behind them, and they were doing all that. I mean, that must be a nightmare to shoot something like that, Rick. I don't know how you get around that. You know,
Yeah,
without seeing a camera somewhere.
yeah, it's all about camera angles, and I know those guys really well. The director of that series started out as a stuntman, actually worked for me a couple of times, and he's had a fantastic career. And Keanu's a wonderful, wonderful man. I doubled him on a couple of movies before he was anybody, and it's a great series. A little overdone with the fights, but who gets tired of looking at that kind of stuff? It's really good. And it's a lot of work for stunt guys.
I always like the fact they go back to the Continental as holy ground. You cannot go and fight here. All of a sudden they break through and they stop, and they're like,
Yeah.
ah. And then they pay off in gold pieces. Joe, what do you think about Enter the Dragon? Pick something that really jumps out at you. The glove, you're killing me. That's
You
not
gotta say,
because I'm going to tell
the
you,
opening scene. Go ahead.
I got the real ones, Rick. There you go. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, the opening scene.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Lee against the young Sammo Hung, and wearing the Kempo gloves, which Bruce loved. These came from Nippon Kempo, Japanese Kempo, and it used to be taught to the Tokyo Police Department. They wanted something where they could hold onto a suspect, but also be able to hold on to a nightstick. And what they did, they took, give me a second, what they took was, come on, the Japanese shinai, and they made it shorter. So it was the size of a billy club. And they would wear full kendo armor. And they would use the nightstick techniques. And also, they'd also use full contact, full blast on the kendo gear. There was a great documentary back in the 80s called Way of the Sword. It had the Tokyo Police Department doing Nippon Kempo. I watched this guy hit a guy with a flying sidekick dead in the chest protector. Boom! Because they could really blast with these. When Bruce saw that, he loved it. Because he could grab, he could trap, he could check. He could open his hands and maneuver like Wing Chun. He could grapple with it. So, you know, Bruce loved these. You know, I had a discussion with a particular Kempo great, Tom Bleecker, and Tom says, no, he didn't. I said, dude, this guy used this a lot. He loves these things, you know, and that's why he used them. You know, he couldn't grapple with a boxing glove, but he could with these. So it's a great, and also, it's the precursor to MMA, folks. You know, people talk about MMA all the time, talk about Bruce Lee being the father of MMA. It's that fight scene with Sammo Hung and all the fight scenes involved from Game of Death. Bruce grapples. So,
did you ever work with Sammo?
I did a fight with him. I can't remember the name of the TV show. And he brought a fight choreographer. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. And we just ended up doing a fight on this TV show. I don't even remember the name of it, but it was great fighting with those guys as well.
The influence of obviously Enter the Dragon then manufactured every impersonator with the name of Lee, Lai, whatever. Does anybody watch those movies out of curiosity? Have you watched any of those movies?
They call me Bruce.
Did you watch that one?
They call me Bruce. It was hilarious. I got his ass kicked all the time.
You know, one of the movies we haven't mentioned that was a classic was Billy Jack.
Yep.
Billy Jack, yes.
At the time, that was great.
Was wonderful. It, you know, I didn't think about it at first, but truly one of my favorites. Bad guy loses, good guy wins.
You know, it's so traditional, taking off the boots. You know, that's when Chuck Sullivan said that ain't gonna happen. You take off your boots. That's when you're and
you know,
Chuck. No way.
I love when Tom Laughlin said, I'm going to kick you right here, and there's not a thing you can do about it.
Yeah, Billy Jack is one of those things. That whole thing, I must have seen that. I can't tell you how many times I saw that. I got a copy of that. Actually, Did anybody ever meet Tom Laughlin? Did you all ever meet him?
He actually came to Grandmaster Han's funeral.
He did.
Yeah, Joe
Yeah.
gave the eulogy there, and he came and he loved Grandmaster Han. He just had enormous respect for him.
Yeah, he wrote all those movies. I invited him to Las Vegas I was going to bring him out with his wife. And he was in poor health at the time, and he couldn't.
He wasn't in good health when Master Han passed.
And yeah, he just said, no, I can't. I would love to, but I can't. But, he was living with his wife. And I was lucky enough to get him to give me the information on how to get one of those hats. And I have one of those. And I have something signed by him, too. So I'm being fanboy right now, guys. I mean, that was one of the reasons I dug that, doing those crescent kicks, because I used to use those things. And that was not a Kempo move at all. So, Frank was into all kinds of different kind of kicks. Did you ever work with Tom or Bong Soo-han, Rick?
No, I haven't.
What are your thoughts on that movie, Jamie? Billy Jack.
Well,
Thought so long ago. I can't recall anything.
There's a
Oh my
trilogy.
gosh, it's so memorable.
There's a trilogy on that stuff.
Yes.
Guys. There's the trial of Billy Jack, and I can't remember what the other one. I have all three of them somewhere. I can't remember this. That's terrible. And boy, I can't remember that. So Lisa, your husband also worked with a guy that I enjoyed, Out for Justice, Above the Law, I guess it was the Law and Order, whatever it was. I can't remember the damn title now. It's slipping in my head. And then Under Siege.
Talking about Steve Siegel.
I am talking about him. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
Well, Joe met Steve through a friend of his, and Steve didn't know anyone. He had just come from Japan. He was married to a woman in Japan, and when Joe met him, he told Joe, he says, I'm going to be a famous movie star, and he said, and I'm going to marry Kelly LeBrock. And Joe's like, ha! Really? You think so? And he said, yeah, Kelly LeBrock is my destiny. And so Joe actually arranged for Steve to meet Kelly LeBrock. And of course, the rest is history. But, he studied with him, thought he was an excellent Aikidoist. But their paths went in different directions a few years later. So it was sad.
Why is that?
That's
Why was it sad?
very diplomatic of you.
Oh, yeah, okay. There's the answer. I was looking for. Actually,
I was being very Well, I'll give you a clue. Joe was Jewish. You don't have a last name like Hyams and not be Jewish. Steve Siegel's father was Jewish. And when his father passed, Steve wouldn't go to the funeral.
Oh.
And Joe cut him off.
Wow. That's too bad.
Because he had told everyone he was Chicago Italian.
Oh, really?
And if he went to his father's funeral, people would know that he was half Jewish. And that was the end for Joe.
I met Mr. Seagal back in at the Polestar Awards. I want to say it was in somewhere between 206 209, and he was backstage. And when I met him, the one thing I noticed about him, he had the same look with the goatee thing going on, and he had the black hair and the ponytail, but he had his hands on his chest here the whole time. And but the only thing that disappointed me was how large he was. He was very, very heavy, but he was very nice. We talked for a few moments and whatnot, and then I was a presenter in the show. I don't know if he did a presentation that day, but I met also David Cassidy. He was funny as hell, man. He was all drunk too, but he had that problem. Sadly, probably got it from his father. I don't know, but anyway, Mr. Seagal was very nice to me, very kind, and I remember also I was with Ted Nugent, the Madman, Motor City Madman, and He was a crazy bastard. I'll tell you, I'll edit this out. Sorry, Rick. You know I'm going to do it anyway. I'm cutting all this out. So
He always says
Let-
that.
I do. That's called a CYA. Jamie, favorite Seagal movie?
Yeah, it's interesting this was brought up because the two that I had written down was Under Siege and Hard to Kill, where Kelly LeBrock is in that movie. And there was that string of years where a lot of Seagal movies were coming out, and there wasn't a whole lot. But those two, I really liked Under Siege, how he was the cook that they couldn't seem to capture, and then of course he has that final battle at the end of the movie, and I also enjoyed Hard to Kill. His wife was murdered in the movie, and they thought he was dead, and when he came back and they were playing pool, and Seagal came in and basically cleaned house. I enjoy those movies a lot.
Todd, favorite movie by Seagal?
Yeah, well, if I have to pick one,
You do.
I'm super not a Seagal fan at all. Sorry, for many of the reasons and more that Mrs. Hyams mentioned there. But yeah, so Hard to Kill.
Really?
Yeah,
Hard to Kill, huh?
had some good fight scenes in it. Had some good stuff in it.
Robert, your favorite Seagal movie?
For Aikido, for what he claims to be Aikido, it had some good stuff.
What was the one with the reggae guys he had? He was fighting those guys, and
Oh yeah, he was like
Death.
a witch doctor.
yeah, that's one I liked. I like that.
What was the name of that one again?
Mark
was
for
it?
Death.
Oh, right.
Mark
Yeah,
for
that was a
Death.
good movie.
Yeah.
Actually, I liked him in Above the Law when he goes and they're in the meat shop and they're going at it and they're with the. I mean, dudes, that was pretty badass. Taking that.
I've got a funny story to tell about Steve. Is he came by the house, and this was mid to late 80s, and he comes by the house and he's talking to Joe, and he's got this real whisper in his voice. And when he left, I turned to Joe and I said, he'll never make it. He doesn't have the voice.
I think that was probably an influence by Clint Eastwood. Had to be. I mean, Clint was that way, and so, sometimes you take something, you emulate it from your influences. So we got that going. So let's end up with more of the current crop. Let's look at something like the new Ip Man
There you go.
series. So let's talk about that. All right. I'm going to throw that out. Who wants to talk first? Jump in. Todd?
Well, yeah, I think Ip Man is a great movie. You don't have to be a fan of Wing Chun to appreciate the movie for a lot of things, but I'm certainly a greater fan of Wing Chun, having watched Ip Man, and Donnie Yen is a fantastic representation of any martial arts system. Certainly the Chinese influence systems, but yeah, what a fantastic movie. I love that movie. I've seen all four. I had to go back and watch the fourth one the other day after talking to you. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
And then shortly into it, I was reminded that, yeah, I'd seen it already several times. I most liked the first one. I didn't particularly care for the one that they introduced Bruce in, but the first one was definitely my favorite.
I guess that number 4 really left an impact on you.
Yeah. Well, it was the last
I
one.
like Scott Atkins. I think he's great. What do you think of him, Joe?
I think Scott Atkins is awesome. I've loved his work on the Undisputed films. I follow Scott, all his work. Matter of fact, he had one of his videos that just come out on video, and I showed that I had picked it up and where you could get it cheaper, and I thought that was funny. Scott actually saw that. But I love his work. I love his work. He's a martial athlete. It's amazing what that man can do. And Ip Man 4 was another example of that. There's some great guys. Mark Fury is in that as well. He's the one who has the fight with the actor from Shaolin Soccer who portrays Bruce Lee in the film. Great martial artist, great fight scenes, great fight choreography. I knew Donnie Yen when he was a teenager in Boston's Chinatown. His mom, Bolson Mock, is a famous wushu master in Boston, legendary female wushu master. So knowing a young Donnie Yen when he wanted to be a break dancer, you know, that's what his goal. He wanted to be the next Run DMC. He wanted to be. That's what he wanted, you know. But yeah, it's such a joy because to watch Donnie Yen in his other films and then to see Wing Chun was a completely different art for him. He had never studied Wing Chun before. So for him to switch completely from the traditional, elaborate wushu to Wing Chun was a real stepping stone. And, simply stated, Donnie's older now. So it just all fit together in relationship to his portrayal of the role, his depiction of Wing Chun, and Hitman's legacy. And,
he did a remarkable job.
I thought he was great. So I liked
phenomenal
I liked the cameo appearance in the Star Wars movie. I think it
Oh,
was
wasn't that
Rogue One.
great? The
That was
blind
awesome.
Jedi, yeah.
Yeah.
The blind
It was-
Jedi who didn't have the lightsaber. The Temple Guard, yeah.
What do you think of that, Robert? What do you think of his work?
Oh, come on, to my Danny Yen, yeah. I mean, phenomenal martial artist. But again, to kind of put everything in perspective, all the movies in which you guys talked about, I love watching martial arts done well. I mean, today's movies, we see a little bit, I think, other artistic things going on, but I love seeing martial artists in a movie doing their stuff. And fantastic.
Does anything stand out that really impressed you? Like, wow, that was really good.
All of it. I mean, come on, man. I'm a martial arts. I love this stuff. So when I see it done well, and Danny Yen is one of the ones who puts it
Did
out
you
really
watch?
well.
Did you watch part 4?
4 I seen wasn't the best. I like the first one. To me,
Okay.
the first film was the best.
I enjoyed was with Scott. I really liked.
I will say he used a lot.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He used a lot more in the fight scene with who's the guy? Scott Atkins.
Yeah.
He used a lot more elbow striking and blocking in that fight because he had a much more powerful opponent, which was an interesting portrayal of the kind of escalation of what he needed to do with force with his Wing Chun system. You didn't see a lot of that in the previous movies because he didn't have the strength of opponent that he had in Scott Atkins. So anyway, just an observation.
What about Mike Tyson? Come on.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be a good choice.
Yeah.
Good old Mike Tyson to crush it. I'm telling you, I don't care. He would have crushed him if he really were to hit him. You get into Scott, and one of my favorites, which is sort of a throwback, if you guys remember, the old Mel Gibson movies that he did with Lethal Weapon. And you get into Scott's doing The Debt Collector in Las Vegas, and it was like that. Here, you know what I'm talking about, Joe, that movie?
Oh, yeah, you bet.
If you haven't watched it,
Louis
it's
Mandalore's in that as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's very humorous. It's one of those moments where you say, gosh, I really liked, the tension release. There was a story there. Rick would have probably said, no, that was pretty well done because it made it interesting, collecting money in Las Vegas, which people are doing all the time anyway. What the hell, right?
Another good one, if you like Scott's work, is The Accidental Man, where he plays the hitman. He has to make everything look like an accident, and that's on Michael Jai White's in that one as well. So we
haven't really talked about Michael. He's an incredible talent. Have you worked with Michael Jai White, Rick?
No, I haven't. I've met him many times at different events, though.
He's a very nice man. I got a
Yes,
chance
very nice.
to be with him and Bill Wallace, Superfoot. There you go. We can go back now. We're going back into putting all these incredible, like with Force of One and Octagon with Chuck, and you start who I haven't talked about, who was really revolutionary in his movie career, and then later on to choreographing and whatnot, is the grand champion Mike Stone.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, there's a badass dude.
Yeah.
And he's pretty intense. When you talk to him, he gets into stuff. He tired me out, Rick. He tired me
The
out.
stunt double for Dean Martin in The Wrecking Crew. A lot of people don't realize that. It was like Mike Stone doubled for Dean Martin, you know, Matt Helm in the Wrecking Crew, and then of course Enter the Ninja.
Yeah, he had that whole
Oh,
ninja series.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm like, where's the ninja movies? Revenge of the Ninja, Shokazugi. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Enter the Ninja. These are great movies.
Yeah, they had all that stuff. It was, you know, it was great. I mean, it was just cool. Okay, but if you're going to talk about ninja, let's talk about the Teenage Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Where's the pizza? Everybody, Raphael, Michelangelo. You know, you can name them.
There were some great
Leonardo.
actors. There were some great actors under those suits.
Yeah, Corey
You know,
Feldman was
Stephen
one of them.
Ho. Actually, Tata Ian Kola, who's a modern Chinese master. He's out back in the Philippines now, but he was one of the people under there, and you know, John Valera, Larry Lamb, you know, all those guys who were like top tournament fighters of the day and tournament form people, you know.
Well,
Many years ago, I had the opportunity to train a little bit in seminars with Datu Shashir Inokala, who played did the Michelangelo scenes in the original movie. Amazing martial artist.
Well, you know, the sad thing is when these guys wear masks or they wear a costume like that, they don't get the credit like they should. I can only throw back to people like Rick they double for these people. They're the ones that create all the magic. And they also take all the hits, so to speak, and that can happen. I've had many friends that have worked in the horror genre like that have been Michael Myers. And they've, you know, got shot, fell off buildings, caught on fire. I know, Rick, you know Dick Warlock.
I do.
And Dick's a really good friend of mine. And he was Michael Myers in Halloween too. But he also did a lot of Carpenter's, but he also was the double for Kurt Russell in all those movies, like, you know,
Big
the
Trouble
Snake
in Little
Plissken
China.
series. Yeah. He doubled for Snake Plissken and you know, Escape from New York. I always thought it was sort of corny with Escape from LA, but you know, but hey, he looked good 18 years later. Shoot, you know, I met him actually one time, a friend of mine down in Palm Springs where I used to live. I got a late call and it said, "Hey, Paul, come on down to the club. I'm closing the bar at 2, but it's gonna be a private party until we leave." And I said, "Man, I ain't coming down there right now. What's wrong with you, Chris?" He goes, "Come on down. You'll have a great time." I can't talk. And I said, I thought about it and I was too tired. So, but I showed up there in the morning because I said, okay, I'm gonna come down and have coffee when he opens. They hadn't left. It was Kurt and Goldie were walking out and I got to talk to them. They looked like.
That's how the two of them lived their life. They used to park. I did a movie, the Poseidon remake with Kurt.
Okay.
And they're chain smokers, and they used to park their plane at the airport where I parked mine and flew my helicopters out of. And man, if you open the door in there, it smelled just like a bar. It was like that. But he was great guy to work with. Really easy going. One of the guys.
You know, he has had an incredible career. And I mean, I can't think of really of a movie that I've watched with Kurt Russell that I didn't like. I mean, you know, I remember when he was the teenager that wore tennis shoes. He was also in gosh, he did all those Disney movies. And one time
Oh,
he came.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, exactly. That was great. That was a fantasy type of weird sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
With all those superstars in there. And
He was one of the few that really had a lifelong career.
he has, yeah. Now he's Santa Claus. He's done 2 of those. He said, "This is the epitome of my career." I made it. You could do that till hey, you could double for him, Rick. There's a stuff. You just put on the beard. You know, I mean, he had I mean, some great stuff there. But yeah, Big Trouble in Little China, you know, is like, or whatever it was called. You know, those movies they stand out. Except when remember when the guy puts on, he starts going up and the things from their fingers.
James Hong, Lopin,
Yeah. And then I need myself a green-eyed virgin. You ain't gonna find one of those in Las Vegas, pal. Sorry, Lisa. Oh well, Lordy. Well, anyway, so let's end up with some final thoughts on this it's always great to have. I'm really honored to have all you guys and you, Lisa, to come on here as well, spend some quality time. I mean, there's some hours of difference, but this is what got us into. This is what influenced us. Final thoughts, Joe. Final thoughts on the martial arts.
Okay. Well, each person, Jamie. First of all, it's great to see you. It's been many moons, my friend. Again, Melissa, I got to talk about the Hollywood Reporter, Joe Hyams, Ed Parker, Rick Jason. You can see the clip on YouTube, and it's, you know, him and his most eloquent. And I always tell people, it also teaches you how to go from cross and talon to locked wing, and it's all there for you. And to see him in that is a joy to behold, and I'm very happy that it's available. Todd, thank you very much for mentioning the Destroyer series. I first learned about that when I was studying to be an African missionary in a seminary and read the books, and I have the movie, and I also have the 2 TV pilots as well. I'm a huge Remo William, the House of Sananju and Chiyun. Thank you for mentioning that. Robert, it's a joy as always. Hey, let's talk about Steve Sanders back in the day and Al Thomas's World of Martial Arts.
Best one.
I'm doing a documentary on it. I need to interview him. I've talked to him about it in the past. Want to talk to Karen Shepard, everybody that's still alive from that project. I did an interview with Benny already on it, and it needs to be talked about if we're talking about entertainment, because that's where you see the blazing hand speed of Steve Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
Rick, I am so happy to see you again. I like I said, still got to get that patch. I'd love to see some of the work, anything that you have documented with you and Yamashita doing Kobudo, man. You know, like I said, I knew about the book with Nunchaku, but I remember that pose standing there with those tonfa. I'll never forget that to this day, man. I'm so glad to see you again and talk to you again. And Paul, thank you so much for talking about my guilty pleasure. I am a drooling fanboy. I literally have over 20,000 martial arts movies. That is not a joke. I sent Paul some pictures of a small taste of my collection. And I'm a huge fan. I always have been. I always will be. You know, I've been a martial arts fan since I was 12. So I'm always looking at new stuff. By the way, real quick, one last real quick plug. The Master. If you get a chance to check it out, it's all about the Wing Chun butterfly knives. And if you want to see a great weapon movie, check that out. It's wonderful. And for those people who do Kempo, if you want to see some of the influences that Mr. Parker got for the Kempo knives, watch that movie called The Master, and it's all about the butterfly knives and a person who's a master of it. It rocks.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit all that out.
As long as they heard it, it's all that matters.
Thank
I'm
you.
just teasing you, Joseph. I always love you. Always bring a lot of color to the discussions because we get so serious. Jamie, final thoughts.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Like Rick, I know you've done a lot, but nothing like that. That is outstanding. Thanks for sharing a lot of that with us. That was amazing. I'm gonna do some searching after we're done. And Melissa, thank you for sharing all that in the past and some of those experiences that you've had. That was amazing. Todd, tell it like it is, Durgan. You gotta love Todd. You'll just say it exactly like he thinks. I love that about him. And it's always a pleasure. Always, Joe. You're a great guy. And Robert, nice meeting you. And
you as well. Thank you.
The only one thing that stuck out with me, Robert, was when you said, "I really appreciate high-level martial arts."
Yes.
I do, but I have to have the acting that goes with it.
Okay.
So acting and then the fights for me. But I love that comment. And Paul, I just say this. Thanks for everything that you do. It's unbelievable what you do for the martial arts world. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie. You're very kind. Let's go over to Robert Temple.
Guys, thank you so much for having me on. Again, I can't say more than what I've said, but guys, I love what you guys have all done and what you're doing. Paul, thank you. Rick, I met you a couple of times. My wife, Sherry, just loves you. Miss Hines as well. Sherry Temple just wants to say hi. And again, Rick, he had a reel that I just seen on YouTube of some of the stuff you've done. Phenomenal. Some of the card spins and crashes. Fantastic. So thank you again, Paul, for having me on.
Todd.
Awesome chat session. Always a pleasure to see Mrs. Hyams. I was at the Hall of Fame when you accepted for your husband. Great stories. Thank you for sharing that. Rick, I don't know if I've met you or not in person, but you got some good stuff. I'm gonna have to look up that highlight reel. Thank you for sharing the stories and the places and times. And Mr. Seabrook, sorry, but it's the only way I can tell it like it is.
Lisa.
Yeah. Wait, I'm not done.
Okay, don't worry. I'll edit you out too.
Okay. So I do have to bring up somebody that nobody mentioned. I was waiting. Was Black Belt Jones from the Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, Jim Kelly.
Come on, nobody had a. I'm gonna go down looking good, right? Come on,
absolutely.
Now.
Looking
Mr.
good.
Rebelo, you are a character. I love you. And Mr. Temple, silent but deadly. I've seen you fight, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure to be on here with all of you.
Lisa, your final thoughts.
I just want to thank you, Paul, for inviting me to join with this amazing group of people. It's such a pleasure to meet all of you in this way. And Mr. Durgan, thank you so much for your kind words about the Hall of Fame event. I love the stories. I love hearing about it. I wish that Joe and I had been together sooner so I could have learned more and been a part of more. But for the 20 years we were together, I had a lifetime. And so I thank all of you for accepting me here tonight. And please go on in good health.
Thank you.
Finally, Rick.
Well, this is why I became a martial artist, because of people like this on the screen. Mr. Temple, I've known you for quite a while.
Yes.
And seen you on a number of occasions. You're a fantastic martial artist, and
thank you.
It's always a joy to see you and your wife, especially. You know, the personalities here, the knowledge, the humbleness, all of this camaraderie has been expanding for me over the last 15 years. You know, I had a school in Santa Barbara that was away from a lot of things, and I had to travel to LA to study with Mr. Parker and Mr. Yamashita and Jerry Petit and people like that, Joe Lewis. But you guys are the epitome of why I'm here, and I've done this as part of my career. So I love you all. I'm glad I got a chance to meet you all. I hope I get a chance to meet some of you in person someday. And thank you, Paul, for putting something like this on. I really enjoyed it, and meeting new people.
Thank you, sir. Well, every one of these guys and this lady are going to be at the awards this year. And I know they're going to come up to see you.
Fantastic.
By the way, if you get a chance, if you get a chance, anybody that I'm going to speak to the audience that's watching this, get a chance, go in and actually Google every one of our guests here, and you will see that they're superstars in their own life. They're what they've done. They bring so much to the martial arts. They've contributed a lot. And for the most part, a martial artist has got a long journey, and they share a lot. They learn more as they go along, but they create what I call perfect moments. And tonight's been one of those moments for all of us. And when we see each other in person, it's a beautiful reunion. So no further ado, I want to say thank you, Joe Rebelo, for coming on here and telling all these. I mean, I could spend hours, but I'm not going to, listening to you. And you have so much, you really do. You bring so much to the art, and it's great. I listened, Jamie, I hope it warms up there, and eventually that you can come out to visit us. All right, we'll see you soon. Robert, I know I'll see you in Las Vegas in June.
Absolutely.
Give my very best to your beautiful wife. She's a wonderful. Todd, you're the best. I love you, man. You always call. He puts up with me every morning calling him. That's the truth. And Lisa, thank you. You're beautiful. She's so genuine. I mean, the first time we started talking, she embraced me and brought me into her world, sharing about her stories with her husband. Finally, Rick, you're the new guy on the block, though you've been around for some time, and we're so happy to see you here. I know we'll have many more conversations with you. So with that, folks, I wish you the very best. Thank you so much, and salute. Good night.
Good night.